Whoa, welcome. Hi,
Hey, I'm trying to pop up myself as well and everything. I understand
how
we're
are
talking about
you?
Web3. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Uh,
Hey, you guys, welcome. Welcome to This Week in Web3 with NiKole and Marc Lee.
that's it.
We're going to talk about Web3 and what it looks like to be in Web3 and to get funky and free in Web3 and also think about decentralization. So, what is Web3? How do you begin to understand it? And we're going to do that together. And so, my name is NiKole Maxwell. I am the CEO of Black Multiverse Enterprises, the founder of the Blackverse Metaverse community. I am a decentralized innovator, and I am also the CEO of MaxDistro. I am really excited to have everyone here today, but also the one thing that you need to know about me is that I specialize in all things metaverse. So when we're thinking about Web3, there is a Web3 that involves the metaverse, but there's also a Web3 that is squarely in Web2. But today we're going to talk about what is Web3, and then we're going to pick out some really cool things to discuss a little bit further. So without further ado, I'm joined by my co-star here, and that is Mr. Marc Lee. And we are thinking about Web3. So Marc, tell us about you and tell us what you know about Web3, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's what I was going to do because I was having a couple of thoughts as you were giving that introduction and everything. Because usually when I think of Web3, I think of the way that businesses are developed and businesses are created and just life in general. So I know that if I was to take it from the lens of other things that have existed, let's just say transportation, for example, there was the basic transportation where people would walk around and they would get around and however they got around, whether that was horse and buggy or whatever. And then we moved to cars. And then after cars, we moved to trains and planes and things of that nature. So, and now there's space travel. So the way I'm thinking about Web3, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that we started off with like a very basic computer and all of that. And that would have been like the first iteration of the web, like maybe in the early days of the clunky computers and all in that space. And then we went to another development, which would have been Web 2, which means that the computers got better, that technology got better, everything got better. And now we have moved toward Web 3. And who knows, we might make it back up to Web 4, Web 5. It's kind of like warp technology in my mind and everything. You develop it and you go through stages. But that's my idea. Web 3 is a more advanced version. And that's what we're hoping to do is get people an acclimation in all of that space. But that's just my thoughts. And I could be totally wrong. But I'm a journalist and I'm trying to learn from the experts in all of that space. But that's the parallel that I would make. How close am I?
So okay, so that's an interesting comparison. It is That's what you would think it would be, actually. So you would think that it'd be this continual progression to something bigger and something better, more fantastical and a little bit more advanced. But you know what? In actuality, Web3 is actually taking us back to Web 1. And so, I don't tend to like to talk about Web3 by identifying it as Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. I think a lot of people, we're in a space of Web 2 right now. And so we all know what Web 2 is. We all have smartphones and all these other things. You've all at some point been on Facebook. You've been out in all of these websites that obtain and contain your data. And you've clicked yes or no to allow for your data to be siphoned from you when you go into a website. Like you see those consent little pop-up boxes come up asking you if you consent to cookies. That's Web 2. We are in Web 2. We all know Web 2. History can tell you all about Web 3 or Web 1. I don't want to go there, but what I want to say about what you said is that, yeah, we are kind of reverting back to a little bit of Web 1 because in Web 1, people mattered. People were empowered and people were not seen as just consumers. And so when we think about Web3 is really about decentralization of some centralized activities that we have going on the web. And so Web3, it includes technology, but there's also other forms of decentralization, and decentralization can come in the form of moving away from a hierarchy in an employment situation. So you are typical corporation. You have a hierarchy, and that includes level employees. That includes being able to work your way up to management, supervision, directorship, and then the C level, the C suite. So there's a hierarchy that exists there. In Web3, that's decentralized. And so in Web3, there's the idea of truly having an organization with a flat hierarchy. So people are equal. People have a voice. People have a say in what happens. And so in Web3, those show up as DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, or organizations that move not with a board and not with the C-suite making decisions and passing them down, but really with the people, the community members, the employees of a specific organization voting to make change and voting to have initiatives, or voting to utilize funds and put forth some efforts into certain activities. There's a whole lot that goes into Web3, but at the core of it, you got to understand that it is the idea of decentralization, and that shows up in the flavor and form of technology most times. You mentioned that you're a journalist, and so one of the things that's up in Web3 this week is actually the idea of written NFTs or writing NFTs. And so we've seen AI take over. We've seen the evolution of some AI type of technology that has come in the form of art. It's also come in the form of videos. So we're seeing that AI, you can speak into existence an article, or you can speak into existence some artwork, or you can speak into existence some video. But now we have NFTs that are enabling bloggers and people to truly have access and power to the Web3 and decentralized space. So Mirror is actually in the news this week, and Mirror is talking about how you can utilize NFTs to write and make change. So I saw you over there. What did you want to say? I want you to tap in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about the Mirror, and I did read a little bit of the article and look at how they were doing that. I think that you were getting some types of crypto coins as part of that. I want to say that it was tied to Ethereum, if I remember correctly, and all in that space. But definitely there was a lot of efforts to have folks have that whole notion of decentralization. And as you know, definitely part of my background is journalism, but it's also being an activist. And as you were speaking, I was thinking that in a lot of ways, and yes, I'm about to maybe well, it was even before I was born, but date myself even further into like my grandparents' era and even my mom and dad's era and everything. Because some of what seems to be going on within the Web3 space is reminding me some of what folks used to say was existing. And I remember maybe even having one as a kid in the ham radio space, because definitely that was an effort, because a lot of people were frustrated that they couldn't hear the news that they wanted to hear, or maybe hear from the neighbor down the street. So they got into that whole ham radio space. And I don't even know if ham radio is still out there or not. I'm assuming it is, and all in that way. And it also reminded me, as we were talking one time not that long ago, about community radio, because a lot of people were frustrated, just like they are about a lot of things, that the corporations had taken over and weren't really giving the voice to the performers. I know that that's been a complaint with writers, and it's definitely been a complaint with music, which is why community radio became a big thing in the world, and other things that are out there that open up the ability for people to actually maintain control and maintain their creative control, because too often there's a lot of lanes out there that are too narrowly oriented and too corporate driven. They think they say that there's like 4, maybe 5, and I can name some of them, like Clear Channel and Live Nation, that pretty much run the broadcast side of the media world. And it sounds like a lot of this stuff in Web3 is upsetting that apple cart, which needs to get upset. I love that idea. I love upsetting the apple cart. But that's just some of the thoughts that were coming to my mind as you were talking about what's going on in Web3, and even that notion of writing on a blog on through Mira and through things of that space. As a matter of fact, I know I was just talking earlier today that I've got to relaunch some of those blogs that have been existing and have been kind of dormant. So that's part of what's going on even within our world of MaxDistro, because we've definitely got to get that blog to be more active and all in that space. And Mira could be a way that can be one of the tools that we use in that space. But that was some of my immediate thoughts.
You know, that's funny that you say that, because MaxDistro is our brainchild together. We are putting that out into the world, and it is distributing and decentralizing all of the things around broadcast and podcast, and the idea of centralization, the idea that you have to go to a specific source for a specific thing when you are a creator. We are definitely, I am definitely dedicated to making sure that we have really cool stuff to utilize and uplift voices in Web3. And I think that you've done an outstanding job of doing that in terms of production and kind of everything that you do with Road to the Apollo, with everything. And so I think us combining forces, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what just happened here? I think people are gonna love it. But I think, like, specifically, like, you are a journalist, and so this is actually a tool. Can you talk just? We don't have a whole lot of time, but can you talk just a little bit about the process for you? What have you ever had like barriers to getting your article seen? And is that something that you are excited about, Web3 being able to change for you in terms of monetization?
No, definitely. I mean, there are always barriers in that sense. I mean, I've done some freelance writing, and freelance writing is where you're not working for the publication directly, so you're not part of their quote unquote day-to-day staff and all of that, but you try to make a pitch to the news editor, and hopefully they buy the article and things of that space. But a lot of times it depends on what the news cycle is, whether they think that the story has a worth, and whether they want to pay for it as well. So definitely there have been times that I have submitted articles and, either it wasn't of interest, even though you tried to pivot it toward the newspaper's core audience and everything, whatever that core audience was. For example, if I was going to pitch a freelance article to the Carolina Times, I would definitely be trying to make it something within our African-American community, since that historically was an African-American newspaper. Actually, I'm not even sure that they're still around. So we'll use the Carolinian as a better example, because I know that they are still around.
But that's a good point though, right? Like, so even with your publications, that site can go down, that publisher can go down, and then what happens to your work? Like, do you even know, like, where is it? Where does it live? When you're thinking about this way of doing it, you absolutely know where it is, because it's on the blockchain. It's storing it in the immutable blockchain forever, and it's publicly available, so people can consume the information instead of the people. And I think that that's really cool. Like, so your creation can be put out into the world like that.
And it's stored for a while, the way that you described it, the way that I've been reading about it, even in Mira, because the blockchain, because that is a dilemma. You were asking me about my personal experiences. And yes, there are some of the old articles that I wrote at the Carolinian when I was there that I was able to track down. And there might even be some clip files about a few of them that are still laying around in different places and everything in that way. But quite a few of them I wanted to reconnect with, and it has been like going down a a maze of stuff that is next to impossible to find, and everything along those lines, because it's just buried down like deep in the ocean. So who knows when or how you will get to it? Because I know there were even articles. I remember writing an article about bats of all things, and a guy that was doing bat research when I was in Milwaukee in school and everything along those lines. And I thought it was a great article at
Well,
that
I'm glad that that got lost. I'm just gonna say
time.
that.
Yes, but I mean, but it's lost. And I was thinking about the context of that article and the content, which is really about ecology and things that need to be happening in the climate. That's why I thought that the article was a good article, not necessarily being a big fan of the bats and all of that, even though Batman is a nice character. But that's neither here nor there. But I was saying to myself that that was some articles that were written, and there was some even articles at the Sherman Park News, which is in Milwaukee, that I wrote as a um, Marquette student, but as a journalist at the time, and I'm going like, how do I find these articles? And I have gone down the maze of trying to find them, and some of them are nowhere to be found because I want to say that even the Milwaukee Marquette Tribune that I was part of, that they've saved some of the articles, but they saved them after I graduated, so they haven't saved back into my year. And all in that space, I'm going like, well, daggone it, somebody's got a copy of it, but it's not me, and who knows who's got that copy. So this eliminates some of those problems. Like if I said I was in college now and I wrote the article, I could find it some 40 or 50 years later, unlike now where I'm sitting there going like, I have no clue where it's at or how to get to it.
Well, it's not even a 40, 50-year-old thing, like a 40, 50 time span thing. It's a thing. Just the other day, we were talking about my article that I wrote over the summer.
Right.
I wrote an article the day that Elon Musk decided to acquire Twitter. And he laid down $44 billion. This happened yesterday. We were having this conversation about this article that I wrote, and it was written back this summer, and I couldn't find it. It was on Medium, and I'm like, I looked for my name, I looked for my nickname, I looked under technical, I looked under Metaverse Goddess, I looked for NiKole Maxwell. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I knew that it existed. I was really looking for the 30 days of Metaverse that I did, but I couldn't find that, and I ended up finding the one that I did on Elon Musk. But I think that that's a problem. Like if I have something and I should be able to find it by my name. And I think that what's really cool about the blockchain is that I can find it underneath my domain, which is technical.eth. So that's my wallet address. That wallet address holds all of my collection of things that I have out into the world right now. So, or I can put it on technical.blockchain. So things that I want to store permanently will go to that address. And I think that it's empowering to me to know that I don't have to rely on Medium, and I don't have to rely on any of these other content providers to say whether or not, oh, you weren't active this week, so all that history of stuff that you've done has been delisted. We've seen where, people gotten shot open over the time. So we have a lot of different things. You guys, we're at time. But I want to say, too, that we have had a really cool conversation about how Web3 is changing the game when it comes to being a journalist, a writer, a blogger. There's many other different assets and attributes that we can take part in when it comes to Web3. So stay connected. This has been the Week in Web3 with NiKole and Marc Lee.
And Marc Lee.
Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you. Thank you, Memphis Gold.
Memphis Gold was just jumping into the conversation left and right. Memphis Gold was having a good time and was even telling us some of the things that they were going through, and they were even addressing some of the things that we were talking about. So I'm looking forward to seeing Memphis Gold come back, because they were saying that they need more exposure in America. So I'm not even sure if Memphis Gold is in the U.S.
Hey,
Maybe they're
come
in
to
another
MaxDistro, Memphis Gold. We'll put you on. Let's talk. Yeah, Marc. So, I want to see your next article out on mirror.xyz.
I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to get out some stuff on Mirror. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to a lot of other things that are going to be taking place in this whole lane, and definitely learning on a regular basis about Web3, because unfortunately, it's like a lot of other things. People hear the term but don't necessarily understand what is going on in that space. So we'll definitely be helping them. And of course, you did a great job of showing those amazing things that are out there and that are going on. And I know that we didn't get to some of the things, so we were also going to talk about how it dealt with the music business. And of course, we both know that we have friends in the music business, and Web3 has been very much a conversation in that. So maybe we'll tackle some of that on next week's show and all of that. So they can be here every Tuesday, right after we learn about the fascinating world of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. Then we'll go into Web3. And then right after that, we'll go into newsworthy stories. So
Or
definitely that.
wherever you're listening to us, whatever time you're listening to us, we'll be right here because we are distributed. We are not on one space and one network. We happen to also be on Pod TV, but we are a MaxDistro production. And we are distributed everywhere. So whether you're listening to us on Hulu, Roku, and you know what? Matter of fact, let's just do this because we need to do this anyway, and we need to just give a little second to our sponsor, not our sponsors, but our providers out here. So this is where we distribute. Over 200 countries, and we are getting ourselves out there. You know what's funny is that I went through this list today, and there's actually over 50 more. So we have a whole
Wait
lot.
a minute. There's 50 and there's 50 more, so that's 100. So that's like a lot of things that are out there. So we're just gonna try to get them totally to the max and all of that. So who knows? We might even find 1,000 by the time that we're done with this whole looking for the different destinations and everything.
You know what I was really excited about, Marc Lee? We have we have at least 3 that are in Web3. 3 Web3 ones. So I am acquiring those Web3 ones slowly, but we will certainly be distributing as much as possible into Web3. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Are you excited about that?
I'm very excited about all the stuff that we're doing and all the ways that we are getting out there. And definitely, this is a beautiful partnership in the sense of all the things that we are having created, including this wonderful show and all in that space. So we're going to get on out of here and definitely be back on next week to continue this great discussion and all along those lines. So definitely been fun. Look forward to talking to more people later on, but definitely we have got to skedaddle, as they used to say back in the day. Definitely got to love that word, skedaddle. But we'll be back next week with more exciting conversation about Web3 and the dazzling things that go on in this particular space. So we're going to try to have folks learn much more. I'm learning on a regular basis because I've got this person that is teaching me so much about Web3 and so much about the other things that are going on in spaces that I had not been part of. And as a journalist, I am just loving that, but also just as a person that is a beautiful friend and a beautiful relationship and all in that kind of space. But just glad to be here, and we'll be back next week and all of that. So we're going to get on out of here.
All right, y'all. Tap in 6 p.m. Tuesdays right here, wherever you're watching us. And you're going to tap in for the Meta Mind Shift Show with me. I'm your host, Technical. Let's go.
Let's go.